Since 1973, May has been the month chosen to celebrate the preservation of historic sites. Although originally meant for just historic Earth properties, our forays into space has now expanded to include those sites that have been visited and researched by humans, namely the Moon. Welcome to this special edition of Into the Vault. I am pleased to welcome Dr. BethO'leary, who is an archaeologist who specializes in the study of outer space and heritage. Beth has already done some amazing work to preserve sites such as the Apollo 11 Tranquility Base landing site on the Moon. The New Mexico Museum of Space History is a host site for that. But let me have Beth tell you more about that. Beth, your show.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Sue. We had in the beginning, around 2000, an interest in raising consciousness about the importance of archaeological sites in space and on the Moon. And we researched some of the legal issues, and we decided that New Mexico could recognize Tranquility Base on the Moon, where the Apollo astronauts landed in 1969, as an important site in New Mexico history and in the history of the world. So in 2006, the lunar site was granted the site number LA 2,000,000, and that's from the New Mexico Laboratory of Anthropology database. Because all of the sites in the Laboratory of Anthropology need to be in New Mexico, we found a way to do that. LA 2,000,000 has its geographic correlates on Earth at the New Mexico Museum of Space History in Alamogordo, a few miles from where von Braun tested his first rocket, and many firsts in space were made. So the UTM coordinates for LA 2,000,000 on Earth are tied to the Apollo landing site on the Moon. And this action really marks one of the first symbolic efforts to preserve cultural heritage on the Moon. So Tranquility Base is now the first registered space heritage site in the world.
Why preserve space sites? Why preserve what's on the Moon? And how do we go about really doing that?
So when we decided to do this, we thought that it would be very important to look at what is on the Moon. And interestingly enough, even since a week ago, there's probably an excess of over 300 metric tons of cultural material on the Moon with the recent Japanese crash landing. So there's a lot of our culture that exists on the Moon. And archaeologists have an interesting way of studying that historians and engineers can't study it. We are looking at what's there, how it was made, the interactions between all the behaviors that got, for example, those first guys to the Moon. So it's a unique perspective of looking at a place that archaeologists hadn't looked at before.
I don't believe that our audience has ever realized how important the items are that have been left on the Moon by the U.S. and other countries that have been there since the space race began. Thank you so much, Beth, for doing this presentation. There is so much more you can talk about, which means there will be other chapters on this subject to follow. My name is Sue Taylor, Chief Curator for the New Mexico Museum of Space History. I want to thank you all for joining me today on this special edition of Into the Vault. Please check us out on our webpage and also our YouTube channel and Facebook. We always have something new at the New Mexico Museum of Space History. Thank you.